Hey guys, welcome back. Past Monty's Garage. Today we're tearing down the engine because of an oil pressure problem. If you're new here, welcome. Go check out that video right there where I was trying to diagnose my oil pressure issue, and I have determined that I have to go further and determine if it's the oil pump or the bearings or who knows what. And the only way to do that is to take the engine out of the car and do a tear down. So this is relative to any engine on the market. If you have an oil pressure problem, I probably have the problem you're having, and so we can see how to fix it. So subscribe if you haven't, because from this point on, we're gonna obviously determine the root cause and start the rebuild process, and we'll show you what's involved in that whole process. I did not do the blueprinting of the engine block or the short block for this build, so that's why I'm gonna do it on the next build. So stay tuned for that. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump into doing a time-lapse photography for you guys. Hopefully it takes like 2 minutes just to show. I was experimenting with time-lapse and see how it works, but as soon as we're done with the time-lapse, I'll be at the point where we can inspect what's going on in the heart of the engine. So kick back, enjoy, leave a comment below, follow along in my pain and show you guys what not to do. And if you ever have this problem, you know how to fix it, and we'll go from there. So be right back. Oh my gosh, check that chip out right there. The skirt, it's missing a corner. And the scratches on there, I didn't even notice this the first time I took the engine apart. That's because this lifter right here is the one that broke. This one right here, that one broke and got caught in between the crank right there, the witness mark right there, and the piston skirt, and must have cracked or broke the piston skirt. Oh my, I can't even believe it. That's crazy. I also found this other thing in the cam bearing. Check this out. A little chunk out of the cam bearing right here. I don't know if it's from me taking the cam out or not, but the piece was still in here when I took it out. So I thought that was interesting. If you guys ever have a lifter get destroyed in your engine and eat up the cam, this is what happens. So when the piston comes down in the cylinder, that debris gets spread off of the camshaft onto the skirt and then gets drawn back up into the piston. So look at these chunks out of the piston. Man. And then here's the actual number 4. There's a piece missing. I suspect a piece of when the lifter broke got caught in between the piston skirt and the crank, because there's a witness mark on the crank, and chipped the skirt. How crazy is that? So I need new pistons here. Let me show you the rod journals on the crank, the main scoring, and then the cylinder scoring. There's the 3 and 4 journal on the crank. It's actually, can't feel anything. And that's my plastic gauge. All of them are at 3000s on the plastic gauge, at least, on all the journals with the existing bearings. Now to tear into the mains. Here's the crank. Feel some grooves in there with my fingernail, so not much there. Not much there. Alright guys, there's the scoring I'm talking about in the cylinder. Like, I can fully feel it. It's worse on this one. If you can see that. I don't know if you can hear it. It's pretty bad. I can't remember which lifter. I think it was this lifter that originally destroyed itself. And so all that debris got caught on the cam and then got sprayed onto the cylinder walls. So these two cylinders are by far the worst. There's some minor scratching on the other cylinders, which could probably be honed out, but this needs to be bored. These are really thick. So trip to the machine shop. Right here are the main bearings, and you can tell right away that's not what they're supposed to look like, especially on the front here. See this wear, shiny spot? That's metal on metal. That's not good. Typically the discoloration means that there's either oil starvation, or in our case I think a little bit of both, oil starvation as well as metal contaminant. If we go over here to the thrust bearing, I can feel a sharp edge right here. So the bearing is definitely wearing away, and then there's no doubt that that sharp edge is wearing away on the crank. So that means I have to get the crank repolished, which means we have to order bearings that are undersized for the new crank journal. Man, this is how you learn the hard way, everyone. So don't do what I did. Whoever said oil starvation and or debris in the oil is the big winner. But you can see this polished where it's polished here. This is metal on metal basically, typically from oil starvation. So I'm going to blame the root cause as the whole PCV incident where I had sludge in the oil pan. So not enough oil was getting to the bearings, in combination with debris in the oil from that lifter failure I had a while back. I didn't do a good enough job cleaning that metal out of the nooks and crannies, because you can see, I don't know if you can see up close, this little hash mark. That's actually a piece of metal that got stuck in there. These spots are basically metal that is welded. Here's a better view of that number 3, sorry, or 4, whatever the thrust bearing is. See the little dots in there? That's not what you want to see. That means metal got into the oil and basically welded itself or imprinted itself into the bearing. And if that goes on too long, that metal can actually weld itself to the crank, and then the bearing sticks to the crank, and that's how you get a spun bearing. Kind of difficult to do on the thrust bearing, but on all the other bearings, let me see if I can find one here. Here you go. There's on the snout, so this is on the nose, and there's a couple spots right there. So if those were to attach to the crank, you can easily get a spun bearing there. This wear pattern is not good either. That means metal on metal. Here's a closer look at one of the rod bearings. We didn't see these before because they were actually in the rod, but this is the brunt of the force taken because the rod is pushing down on ignition, pushing down on the crank, right? So this is the most critical portion. You can tell it's metal on metal, and you can also see those vertical lines. That means there's debris in the oil. So my fault. I didn't clean it well enough the first time, so I'm gonna do it right this time. Lesson learned for me, so hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes here. Oh, the crazy stuff I get myself into. So lesson learned, you guys, if you ever have a lifter go south on you or commit suicide like mine did, you have to take the whole engine apart, clean every nook and cranny. I did not do that the first time. I was too excited putting new lifters in because I thought I found the problem. Totally forgot about cleaning the engine. My fault. Other problem was the PCV issue I had a couple months ago created too much sludge. If you have too much sludge in your engine, your oil pickup screen will get clogged and your oil pump has no oil to pump. I suspect that was a contributing factor as well, hence the oil starvation signs. And that was been going on from day one. I didn't know that was plumbed incorrectly until we had that blowing smoke problem from that Autotopia LA video. Man, crazy. So, moving forward, let's think positively. I have to get the crank repolished. I have to get it rebalanced because I had to get bigger pistons. Those are on order from Butler Performance. They're 4191s, which means my displacement is going to go from 467 to 469.9. So I don't know if I should say 69 or just go to 470. The good news is on that part, it's 7.7 liters on the nose. So I can brag about that now. Moving forward, we're going to go ahead and do a full short block setup and installation series, which I did not do in the past because I didn't do the short block. I left it to someone else. This time I'm going to do it. I'm going to blueprint it. I'm also going to have a professional back up my data. So we're all going to learn together here. So thanks for hanging out. I hope I help you guys find your oil problem because you probably have the same problem I do if you have an oil pressure issue. And until next time, you guys know the drill. Build them fast, drive them faster. See ya.